Alright, I'd like to briefly apologize because I believe today is the first day I have not had every 2 days a triple triad video go up in ages. I ran out of content. I haven't been very active recently. I apologize. I've also missed 2 or 3 games of this Delial Turdz match, and so I don't really know what's going on in it, but I assume it is shaping up to be a banger of a match. But today we will hopefully now be catching it. I'm gonna be in and out because reasons, but so we're gonna be like pausing regularly. But this often makes for better videos anyway because I don't just ramble and find things to say. That said, the games haven't started yet, so I'm gonna ramble about Football Manager because I just had the there is a gold game up video up today. All right, we haven't missed a day. Cool, great. All right, and this one can go up in 2 days. Wonderful. Um, in Football Manager, so my right back takes the ball fairly deep and immediately crosses it over, putting my striker through. So my striker is one on one with the keeper. A defender slide tackles behind him, completely misses. Striker 1v1 with the keeper. And if you've played much Football Manager, you know, like, sometimes you score, sometimes you don't. And depending on what Football Manager you're playing, like, what scoring looks different, right? In some, the player will only score if they take it early. In some, the player will basically only score if they are right in front of the keeper when they shoot. Um, but in most, at least in my experience, and I haven't played too many different Football Managers, I tend to find the ones I like and just play a lot of those. In most, sorry that this is completely destroying the whole Turdz Delial part of the video, but I think the game was put up and I think it has been taken. So, anywho, um, so my striker's one on one with the keeper. But in most, a successful thing is if they just dribble around the keeper, it works. And my striker does. He goes right, keeper dives, striker gets around him, open goal in front of the striker. At this point, he takes an extra dribble. And I'm quite worried because he's on the right of the goal now, and he's starting to make the angle a little bit tight. Like, he should still score very trivially, but like, maybe it's possible he doesn't score. The keeper is still fallen over. Defenders are sprinting back, but nowhere near close enough to like block the goal. Right? It's our striker versus the goal. Who's gonna win? My striker makes the incredible decision. Okay, so again, their keeper's on the ground. They have 2 defenders running back. I have no attackers anywhere close, but my striker has an open goal in front of him, even if he has just made the goal a slightly tighter angle. It is still very much open. This moron decides to cut the ball back for another attacker to finish. Just like cut it in front of the goal so if there's anyone there, they can score. There's no one there. Dude, you have an open goal. Just put the ball in the goal. All you have to do is hit it slightly to the left. He cuts it back right to where the defenders are running. Now, one of them decides to slide tackle, presumably assuming my idiot striker had shot on goal, had put the ball towards the goal, and maybe slide tackling could get in the way. It was nowhere close. Yeah, so this tackle is nowhere close to stopping what any shot would be, but it does perfectly put my idiot striker's crossback right into the goal. He slides a beautiful own goal, but just this incredible series of just terrible decisions for my striker. All right, let's look at this. So the rules, as we may recall, are SPCE, um, max of 198, no 99s. So we can see they've each gone for a 9862. I'm not sure why 6-2 would particularly appeal, but it seems fine, right? That's not a complaint about 9862s. They are good cards, but without plus wall, I'm not sure what specifically makes them more appealing than like 9871s or whatever else. On the other hand, if you already have a 1 facing up, as both players do, both of the 9871s that are corner 98s have a 1 facing up, so you might not want to double up on that. Though it didn't seem to be a problem for Stuff in his semifinal. Incidentally, Euro Stuff 2024 really coming along well. Now, you also have to have 3 elements in your hand. So you can see they've both gotten an element out of their 9-8. That probably is why the 9-8-6-2s are preferable. They land on elements. I'm just reacquainting myself with the rule set. They both went with two 977s with a 1 or 2 on the as the last number. But at this point, you need more elements, right? At this point, they've each gotten 2 elements, and they need. Well, Deli went with three 977s. Turdz went with a 976 and an 88. And I think we talked about going 88 last time. Interesting choice. And Deli went for a 5597 as a way to get his, I guess, not last required element. Okay, let's look at if any of the elements can get a +1. Vaguely, we'll get ourselves to thinking about the actual position. Now, I had forgotten that 1797 is double elemental, both rock and holy. Again, we made a change to some of the cards to make their elemental affinities clear, but FF Tactics snuck through that change, and its elemental affinities are not always clear. I think this is a bummer. I think Dal did good work making it clear what cards were, but there is still some lack of clarity. Like, you should be able to look at the cards and know what they do, right? Triple Triad is not a game that should require secret information, right? Like, ooh, what's something that is here but is not visible on the cards, right? This is not that kind of game, right? Okay, Deli his first turn. That's actually kind of interesting. If I bring up my thing, I don't have the records of the games because they're elemental, so, like, I'm not, yeah. I can't, like, stick them in any engine, so it feels pointless to record the individual moves. But by my count, yeah, I count them as playing 4 games. I think I've captured 2 of them, and Turdz has had first turn in every single game. So this is the first time Deli's having to find a starter. And I haven't seen too many of the games. I don't remember what my thoughts were on first or second turn advantage. But often this can be a real swing point in a series when one player has had first turn over and over again. And I think I thought first turn was difficult. SPC tends to be hard for first turn. I think I thought Turdz had done well to manage ties here. So the question is, can Deli kind of turn this on its head and show that second turn has the advantage? Or will Deli be struggling here, right? Will this be a tough spot for Deli? Another thing is, Deli may have run this hand before, right? Deli is a hand repeater. So there is a chance Turdz specifically thinks he lines up well here. Now, I thought Turdz was in kind of trouble the 2 games I saw, and played really well to get out of it. From what I recall in the Discord chat, Turdz did not think he was in that much trouble, and he may have been right. But interesting other evaluation. All right, once again, I kept repeating we've only seen 1797 and 2 as starter, but that's not true. We saw a rare and 2 as starter in the vid stuff game. It's impossible for me to internalize that rares are real cards because I do not believe in them. That said, let's look at Deli's move. So how can Turdz attack it? There is 7, 2, 7, 9, and 2, and Deli's point is he has an elemental +1 and 4. I didn't finish actually talking through the elementals. I got distracted by 1797 being holy, but the 9826 and 4 and the 5597 and 4, I believe, are the only +1s that can possibly take effect. So Deli is saying, if you capture this, I do have a capture back, but let's look a moment further. If Deli captures back with 9826, which is the only recapture, Turdz has a +5 with 8827. And I think it is very doubtful Deli can set up against that. Yeah, I do not think he can set up well against that. So I think Turdz attacking it is actually quite interesting. 7, 2, 7, 9, and 2. So if Deli can't go in 4, and he might be able to go in 4, the question is, can he go in 3 or 6? My guess, I'm just going to look at it first because I think it's unlikely, is that he doesn't have very good play in 6. But he might. 5, 5, 9, 7, and 6 looks promising, setting up a same in 5. Doesn't really set up 3 all that well. You don't need a combo in 3, but you need cards that are comfortable to put there, and your hand is really clunky after that. It's probably okay. But I think the main move after 7, 2, 7, 9, and 2 is just 5, 5, 9, 7, and 3, taking safety. And it's 5, 5. Turdz probably has decent L options there, though His cards might prove a little clunky. I don't know. I would guess that favors Deli a little. I think that's a pleasant position for Deli. Turdz might have something in 5 there, but I don't see it. No, I don't think so. I think Turdz would have to go in 4, and if Turdz has to go 4 there, that position strikes me as clumsy. Just double checking some things. Strikes me as clumsy. Like, it's really hard for you to set up 5. It can be difficult for you to recapture from 7. I don't think you should be lost, but I think that's a kind of scary position to walk yourself into. Okay, so you have a capture in 2, but you probably don't want it immediately. You do not have a capture in 4, so I think the next thought should be, can we play 4? Can we set something up in 4? Not can we play 4? One way to do so is 9, 7, 3, 6, and 7, but this is, I think, a very dangerous move to make. For instance, if Deli played 7, 9, 7, 1, and 4, then 4 is now safe for Deli, and you only have one card that can capture in 2 or 8. You're overworked, right? As soon as you play that card, 7, 2, 7, 9, and 2 or 8, you have no threats in the other one, and the opponent has an army of safety. Now, you might be able to do something like play 7, 2, 7, 9, and 8, setting up a threat in 5, but the problem is Deli has 5, 5, 9, 7, so that can take that threat in 5. So yeah, I think you really can't promisingly go 7. Can you go 5? Yes. Do you want to go 5? One move that kind of is interesting to me is 17975, but it sets up Deli 7971 so well. It might be fine. Like, sometimes those moves are fine, but humans hate playing those moves. The solver likes moves like that a lot more, where it's like, yeah, you gave them the same card in both sides and their first turn, so they get to play it last turn. No big deal. But as a human, you don't do that. The reason I thought it was kind of promising is because if Deli forces the action, I think you have pretty good play. Because one thing that I noted is one of the problems with going 2, right, was Deli, or my main problem with going 2 was Deli goes 5, 5, 9, 7, and 3. And one thing about 1, 7, 9, 7, and 5, Akiyama is very good about this kind of thing, is if Deli forces that action, or if you go 2, Deli goes 3, that sets up 6 against the key move in 3. And that can be a really useful thing down the road. So that's what appealed to me about the move in 5. But I think practically it's a pretty hard move to make. What else is there? I think 2, 9, 8, 6, and 4 is kind of the move some players would make, but after 9, 8, 2, 6, and 7, I think you basically have the same problem as going in 7 immediately, that your 7, 2, 7, 9 is really overworked. I mean, I'd probably, if I was low on time here, I'd probably just play 7, 2, 7, 9, and 2 and figure I could work it out. But I have not found a good move here. I think you could also just chuck something in the opposite corner. Because as long as you have a decent rejoinder to Deli playing in 2, you're probably not in too much trouble. And if Deli goes in 2, you probably have safety in 3, depending on what you put in 9, right? If you put like 2, 9, 8, 6, and 9, you no longer have safety in 3 because you've set up Deli's bomb. But I think this was a good starter from Deli, and I think Turdz is really unhappy he doesn't have an 8 to the left here, right? He'd love to have a second way to capture in 2. Okay, very interesting. Turdz goes for the, it's not quite the Akiyama 5 because it sets it both ways. Deli will be very happy to see this because Deli loves having combo potential. But I think there's a real point here, right? I think he does have the card both ways, the card in 1. It might be clumsy for Deli to play next to it, right? He doesn't have, he has some cards. But also, maybe you can just force the action later, right? Maybe you can just, like, next turn play 7, 2, 7, 9, and 2 and say, okay, you don't have a good play in 3. You either get comboed or you have a 1 or a 2 facing out. I can work with this. I wrote this off because I just thought humans don't play this way, but I'm not sure this is bad. I don't think it is particularly good. I think Deli did find a serious advantage out of his first move. Um, so there's the question for Deli: how do you keep 2 and 4 alive, right? Because if you can keep 2 and 4 open on the board, right, at some point your 7-9-7-1 wins. So you could also look to take him immediately, but like anything in 2, you're comboed from 4. Like 7-9-7-1 and 2 would fit really well there, but it's a problem. So, what are some ways you could keep them open? Well, one way is you could say, okay, this is kind of crazy. You could say, okay, I have a problem in 4. I'm going to get rid of 4, but set up more combo potential. I'm just mentioning this move because it's a Deli, so he could do something like this. So there's like 7-7-1-9 and 7, setting up combo in 8. You have the combo in 2. Once 4 is taken, you can use 2, right? Because suddenly there's no combo back if 1 can't be flipped, which it can't once 4 is played. So there's ideas in 7, but I think the traditional thing to do here, like the kind of conventionally attractive move, is to go in 9, right? If you can find a good move in 9, and there was some game fairly recently where like the move order was like 9-5, and I think it was Deli playing, and it was kind of like I'm not sure who was playing now, but the cards were 9 and 5, and it was a situation where like you have one card for both sides, but if you go in 2 or 4, which are the we'll make it for the equivalent of this 1 and 5. If you go in 6 or 8 here, the opponent will have options to slide in 2 or 4 and start to get rid of those squares. While if you go in 9, they have less counterplay. So for instance, if you go in 8 and they go in 2, you really can't go in 4. Or it's like pretty hard to go in 4 if they have any coverage at all, which Turdz likely will. So like if you go in 8 here, you are not kind of guaranteeing that you will be able to meet 2 with 4 or 4 with 2, right? And your want here, given that you have 1 cards for both squares, is it would be really nice if you could meet any move in 2 with 4 or any move in 4 with 2. But if you go 8, they can go 2, and you can't go 4 immediately. There are other ways they could play around this where you can't force use of the squares in quite the way you want. And the only way you can force that use is to go in 9. Because if you go in 9 and they go in 2, you can go in 4. If they go in 4, you can go in 2. The other way to do it is 3 or 7. You can force that interaction, but that forces that interaction sooner than you might. This is why I mentioned the move in 7. So the traditional way to do it is to go 9 here. And there was some game where I didn't see a move in 9. I think it was Deli, and he found a way to play 9 because even though he didn't have a recapture in 1 square, it didn't matter. I forget why. Maybe combo potential through 5. Maybe just the opponent never had didn't only had clumsy ways to take it that gave Deli good play elsewhere. I don't remember exactly how it worked, but I think it was Deli, and I think that means he's very good at finding moves in 9 even when there's not an obviously appealing option. Okay, so options in 9. I think 7-7-1-9 is kind of the default choice. 5-5-9-7 has double captures in both 6 and 8. Though here we're giving Turdz a lot of combo potential, because now Turdz has a combo in 8 and Deli doesn't. It's not obvious that combo ever means anything, right? Deli's card that's likely to go in 6 is not weak to 5. Deli's card that will go in 2 or 4, the 7-9-7-1, is not weak to 5. It's not clear this is dangerous on a combo level, but it is something a little worrisome to keep in the air. But I think 7-7-1-9 and 9 is an interesting option. There's also 9-8-2-6 and 9, which sets up a same and 6. But again, Turdz shares combo potential or has at least as much combo potential, and you don't really have something good in 8 after that. The last option, because you need to keep 7-9-7-1, is 5-5-9-7 in 9. But this seems very clumsy with your cards. You're basically reliant on 7-9-7-1 after that, and every square and you do not want one card for every square, because all they have to do is get it out of your hand or force it, like, say, okay, you have to play it. Like, I go 2, you have to go 4, and suddenly you're like, oh, but I don't have a card for 4. Now, here I guess you do, you have Bomb, but, that was a badly chosen choice. You don't want one card for every square and your other cards to be blanks. So if Deli goes in 9, I would expect 7-7-1-9. Now, this is not to say 6 and 8 are bad. It is to say 6 and 8 are less focused on that 2 or 4 double square. I also wouldn't rule out Deli going in 7. That seems like the kind of move he would sometimes make. Deli, like myself and some others, has also been drawn in the last few years to forcing the action in 2 or 4. I don't think it makes very much sense to do so here. Turdz has set up combo play and some potential safety-ish things. So I would guess Deli goes in 7 or 9, but also Deli, one of his strengths, and one of the reasons Deli is so benefited by longer time controls, is Deli does a wider candidates move search than I do. Yeah, he goes 6. Which is not recapturable from 3. So he's saying he has good coverage of 9, and he very well might. Yeah. But on Deli's strengths, one of, I think, Deli's biggest strengths over other top players is he just has, I think, the just widest range of candidate moves he looks at. Like, he sees the most potential possibilities. And he will spend some amount of time, which is why he gets so low, on each, right? If we look at, like, me thinking about Turdz, now obviously I'm talking, so I can't go through as much as I would if I wasn't talking, and I get distracted because I'm not actually playing, so I don't have to focus. But, like, I sort of checked 2, 5, 7, right? I sort of said, okay, we can take from one side, not the other, so let's look at setting up the other and taking from the side we can take. And I didn't really look at much else very seriously. And Deli would have looked at other moves. Deli would have checked, what do I want in the opposite corner, and maybe even more than that, though maybe just those 4 squares. I'm not sure how much more there was to check in that position. He doesn't play many far sides. There are some players who would spend time there. That is, I think, correctly not something Deli spends a lot of time on. Okay, so Deli's point is he doesn't have a recapture in 3, but he's saying Turdz doesn't have a good play in 9. For instance, if Turdz plays 8-8-2-7 in 9, Deli has combo potential, though this is getting really scary, because Deli's combo potential takes the 7-9-7-1 out of his hand and is weak to 5. So I would strongly consider 8-8-2-7 and 9 for Turdz. This is one of those really combative moves where 7-9-7-1 has every square, but the rest of Deli's hand is dead. And you do have a same in 8, right? If Deli doesn't play 8 himself, you can get 9-7-3-6 to land an 8, and then you're not susceptible to getting comboed, right? Bomb is yours, 9 is yours. That card's not even that easy for Deli to take, though it's not that hard, and you don't really have recaptures, but, you've locked in enough cards, the position gets promising. So I think 8-8-2-7 and 9's a really interesting candidate. 7-2-7-9 and 9, I think you cannot do. You give up your threat in 2, and you get comboed. That seems like way too much to give up. 2-9-8-6 doesn't flip anything, probably not a candidate move. 9-7-3-6 is the other candidate move. One thing I don't like about it is it makes it a little harder to play 8. You now need 8-8-2-7 to block 8. And while that's not susceptible to combo, and maybe that's better, right? Because in my other line, I was potentially landing 9-7-3-6 and 8, but then Deli has things like 7-7-1-9 and 7, which is actually safe, given the elemental in 4. Well, if we switch up the sequence, we start with 9-7-3-6 and 9, then 8-8-2-7 landing an 8 is much harder for Deli to take. But the problem with 9-7-3-6 and 9 is Deli now has a use for his 7-7-1-9, which is now very good landing an 8, and Deli is left 2 and 4 open, which is really desirable. Okay, so I think 8-8-2-7 and 9 is a serious and promising candidate move. What else could we do? Well, If we want to get rid of 2 and 4, we could consider going in them immediately. Now, if we go in 2, we either need to be able to combo back through 4, or we need to just be safe to 3. Nothing is safe to 3, but we do have combo backs via 4. So it is very reasonable to consider 2, 9, 8, 6, and 2. This is another plausible move. I wish it... Yeah. Yeah. And this seems like the kind of move Turdz makes a lot. Turdz likes going in 2 out of these J setups significantly more than I do. I think 2 makes some sense. I prefer 9 to 3. I prefer 9 to 3, but 3 can be okay here as well. 3 is worth checking. There's also, of course, 4. Nothing is safe in 4. No, sorry, the 9826 has been taken out of the hand. So you could play 2986 and 4 as well, and that is safe, and he has picked it up. And that gets rid of some of those squares. So 2986 and 2 or 4 seems like what's coming. And those seem like reasonable moves. I think Turdz is now in a reasonable position. I think Deli's starter was really good, but after move 2 and 3, I might prefer to be in Turd's shoes. Which has generally been, over the 3 games I've seen this series, I've generally been Deli is ahead early, but by kind of move 5-ish. Okay, he goes 3. Okay, but this is a clear point. It's saying 7, 9, 7, 1, and 2 doesn't work. Yeah, I didn't seriously check 3, but I should have. He's also saying I have 9 covered, right? I didn't really think about... I thought about whether Turdz could play 9, but I didn't think about whether Deli could. Turdz is saying, 7, 7, 1, 9, and 9, that's going to be comboed. 5, 5, 9, 7, and 9, that's going to be comboed. 7, 9, 7, 1, and 9, you really want 7, 9, 7, 1. Turdz is really playing to say 7, 9, 7, 1 is Deli's only card. That's very nice. I like this. That doesn't mean, I don't know that this is, a super, dangerous or the optimal move here. I have no idea. Elemental's difficult. But it is to say, from a kind of, conceptual framework, I think this is a very appealing move. Just making sure the other cards do not have play. Right? So, Deli, being a madman, is of course going to consider 7, 7, 1, 9, and 7, because that is the move that maximizes combo potential. I worry that his 7, 9, 7, 1 is not actually as good a finisher as he needs, but that is a very possible route. And one important thing about 7, 7, 1, 9, and 7 is if Turdz ever has to block 9, 7, 3, 6, and 8 to avoid getting comboed through 5, that doesn't flip 7. Because Deli cannot actually flip 7 back from 4 with 7, 9, 7, 1, which is the card presumably landing in 4. So it's important that Turdz cannot take it in a non-clumsy fashion. Alright, so I think 7, 7, 1, 9, and 7 is interesting. What are other possible moves? Well, Deli can go 2. Man, there's something about both Elemental and it not being your own game that I just don't want to actually calculate anything. I just want to be purely conceptual. So, obviously something like, does 5, 5, 9, 7, and 2 win, tie, or lose? This is a question for calculation that I really don't feel like doing, but I probably should. This is not a very promising move. I don't think it, wins, but, if that move ties, maybe it's the move that should be played and just force the tie here. I think 7, 9, 7, 1, and 2, you can kind of rule out relatively quickly, right? Turdz combos in 4. Everything is Turdz except 6. Turdz will be up 7-3 there. Does Deli have a tie? I don't think so. I don't think so. Maybe. Maybe that's fine. Maybe it's just all fine. So like 7-9-7-1 and 2, if Turdz plays 9-7-3-6 and 4, which is the obvious move, he goes up 7-3. Deli's only card is 6. But what if Deli plays 5-5-9-7 and 7? It's 6-4. No, sorry, because Deli can't reflip 6. Okay, sorry, that's a stupid line. I'm being foolish. Yeah, okay, that doesn't work at all. Good, because that shouldn't work at all. But that leads us to something like, if you play 5-5-9-7 and 2, and Turdz goes, let's say, in 4, you also have to check 9 and maybe other things, but probably just 4 and 9. If Deli just blocks 2, 5-5-9-7, Turdz takes the same in 4. Turdz is up 6-4 there. Deli has 2 and 6 and 2 cards in hand. And let's say Deli goes 7-9-7-1 in 7. He makes it 5-5. And his 7-7-1-9 really dominates the bottom row, right? It can capture anything Turdz puts in 8, and if Turdz goes in 9, Turdz can flip something, but it can combo with the same 8-8-2-7 with a plus 7-2-7-9. So the only tie there would be 9-7-3-6 and 9, but 9-7-3-6 is out of Turdz's hand. So actually, I think 5-5-9-7 and 2 is a win against 9-7-3-6 and 4. Which means Turdz very likely has to start in 9 against 5-5-9-7 and 2. Interesting. The most appealing move in 9 is probably 8-8-2-7 still. Because if Deli goes in 8, you have 4. I think Deli there can go in 7, setting up 7-9-7-1 pretty well. You have to play 9-7-3-6 and 8, and that's a tie. Okay, so 5-5-9-7 and 2 I think is a tie, but it's actually pretty dangerous for Turdz. Turdz has to be quite careful there. He does not have, like, a clean way to play that position that isn't, like, annoying to calculate. Okay, back to thinking Deli is better here, and that Deli is looking for wins. I'm not sure I've, like, considered the best move for Deli. Deli has lots of options, but, like, again, 7-7-1-9 and 7 is interesting. It's possible he has something in 9. I just haven't calculated it. Very possible. I think blocking 2 should be fine for him. I'm skeptical of 4. I don't think he should go in 4, and I don't think he should go in 8. But any of 2, 7, and 9 have, like, promising options. He's picked up 5-5-9-7. I think it's going to go in 2, and I like this move a lot. I think it's weirdly dangerous for Turdz. Right? Normally these moves that just give up 3 and give up a combo in 4 are, yeah, he plays it, are not that promising. But Deli is very good at the specifics of a position. And so again, my first line here to check was 9-7-3-6 and 4, where Turdz goes up 6-4, but Deli wins with 7-9-7-1 and 7, and 7-7-1-9 sweeps. You can see how it dominates the remaining 2 cards. So I think Turdz has to go, 7, 8, or 9. Because anything else in 4, Deli can also play 7-9-7-1 and 7, and he wins because you didn't flip enough things. So let's get rid of 8 just because. Let's get rid of 8. Because that should be the easiest to get rid of. Actually, 8 might hold. Does 8 hold? That'd be pretty funny. I don't think it should, but if 8-8-2-7 and 8, yeah, that one loses. Okay, but say 7-2-7-9 and 8. Does that hold? Am I being crazy here? If 7-7-1-9 and 9, Deli's currently up 6-4, he will go up 7-3, but 9-7-3-6 will flip 1-5 and 8, and it'll be 6-4, and Deli actually only flips one back there. 7-2, 7-9, and 8 might be a funny tie. You have to check everything, and I am lazy, but like, it should tie against 9. Yeah, it should tie against 9. It definitely ties against 7. You just go 9, and you tie. And so does it tie against 4? I mean, no move in 4 sets up 7. So yeah, okay, 7, 2, 7, 9, and 8 is your funniest tie. Turdz, however, has picked up 8, 8, 2, 7. I presume this is going in 9. That's the logical square for it. Very interesting, complex game. Yeah, 7, 2, 7, 9, and 8 would be a very funny way to tie. I feel like I'm missing something. Like, I just, haven't calculated triple triad in a while, but like, is that not a funny looking tie? Akiyama would play that. All right, so he does go 8, 8, 2, 7, and 9, which was surely an idea he had in his head from the previous turn. And the point is that 7, 9, 7, 1, and 8 is met by a huge combo in 4, which I suspect wins the game, though haven't actually counted it, but surely does. Now, Deli has 7, 7, 1, 9, and 7 here, which should tie. No, it shouldn't, because 7, 2, 7, 9, and 8. What am I talking about? No, that's comboed back. Right. They can only play 9, 7. I figured this out so many times and then forgot. Yeah, because 9, 7, 3, 6, and 8 has to be played, so it's not susceptible to combos in 5. Yeah. So 7, 7, 1, 9, and 7 could be played, a move that has come up every turn of Deli's from turn 3 onwards. So this is surely an idea that is in his head as well. What else is there to consider? 7, 7, 1, 9, and 4 ties, right? Yep. Unless my brain's completely gone. 7, 9, 7, 1, and 4 also looks like a tie. I think 4 is a tie. 7 is a tie. 8, not so good. Alright, interesting game. Interesting game. Yeah, E-games are very complicated. I think I made no plus wall screw-ups today, so I'm kind of proud of myself that I didn't, I think at any point assume plus wall was a rule. So recapping the game, Deli, I think, found a really difficult starter for Turdz to meet. With all these 7s in the hand, 7s can be really clunky to take, and Deli found a nice way to exploit that while also taking advantage of the E and 4. Turdz went for a move that I called completely inhuman, like has obvious appeal but feels very dangerous to do. Deli's move in 6 is the one move of the game that didn't really click with me, but he did have a lot of play if Turdz wanted to go in 9. But Turdz said, you can't go in 9 either. I'm going to go 3 and you can't take that. But Deli, as he so often does, had left himself with really good endgame cards if he just gets rid of 5, 5, 9, 7. And 5, 5, 9, 7, and 2, a surprisingly dangerous move. But Turdz, it seems, had it well in hand, unless I've missed some last turn shenanigans, and gets out with the tie. I wonder what would have happened if 8, 8, 2, 7, and 9 had been played instead of 3. I also think 2 and 7, or 2 was interesting as well for Turdz, as was 4. Like he could have played in 2, 3, 4, or 9. All I think were interesting. Deli, I wonder what would have happened if he had played in 9 on turn 3. As well as the various options in 7. I wonder if he considered them. I have no idea. I don't have the Discord open. I'll pop the Discord and see if anything's happening there. I said I was going to pause at various points during this game, but this was really interesting, so I didn't find a way to. And I did get, some people like the cadence of their own voice too much, and I am one of those people. So, yeah, very interesting first game of the day. Let's see what's going on. in an hour, the Euros start. Go Netherlands. God, this England run has been so painful. So, I root against England. I used to love Steve Gerrard, so like I kind of liked England in those days, even if the Gerrard Lampard like double center mid lineups just didn't work. Um, but like if England ever wins anything, watching anything in the Premier League will bring it up so often in such insufferable to a non-supporter's ways that I have become over the last probably like 10, 12 years more and more committed to the idea that if England ever wins anything, I am no longer interested in football. Like I just don't see how I can watch anything because I, have to watch with English speaking announcers. I like being able to listen to announcers, even if they're saying dumb things. It's fun to be like, wow, that was stupid. All right, Deli does go for the fun move in 7. Um, so like it just feels like if England win, I don't know how you watch football anymore if you're an English speaker and don't like England for at least like 5 years, maybe more. And maybe the Euros won't be the end of the world and the World Cup will. Like maybe it's possible if England wins the Euros, the sport isn't over. But it just feels like one of those things of like when Golden State went on their run in basketball. I really don't like Golden State. I really didn't enjoy them. And I am not the basketball fan I was in 2014, right? It's just never come back. I really like Jokic. I like some things, but I am just basketball does not have anywhere near the appeal to me it did 10 years ago. And like people change, right, and all that. Um, when Djokovic went anti-vax, I had been a Djokovic fan. I had been like, he's gonna break the records, guys. This guy's really, really fucking good. And then by the time he was actually hitting the records, he had gone from this goofy guy I really liked to this harmful loon that I couldn't support. And I basically have barely watched tennis since. Like, I like Alcaraz. I'm rooting for him. I hope, he wins Wimbledon that's currently going on. But I tend to hit the point where my fandom mashes up with often people I think are pretty unethical or just really dislike being really dominant. And the Djokovic one was just depressing because I had been a fan of his for, such a long time. Like my first tennis love was Delpo. Love Delpo. But my second tennis love was Djokovic as he was maybe in like so the Delpo was the US Open in 2009, I think. That's when I started watching tennis. Yeah. And by early 2010, Delpo was like super injured, and I switched over to Djokovic. So I was like, I'd firmly been on the Djokovic train for a year before his huge 2011, et cetera, et cetera. And like, it was great. I got his 2011, I got his 2016, and now I'm just bummed about all of it because the dude sucks. What are we talking about? Yeah, soccer. If England ever wins, that's the end of soccer for me. Like, I lost tennis. I kind of lost basketball. I go in and out, but I don't think it's ever going to be what it was. And I'd really like not to lose football. And I think if England wins the Euros, I probably lose football. If they win the World Cup, I definitely do. So the goal in like every tournament, incidentally, like if England was playing Portugal, like a Ronaldo team, like I would root for England, but I would feel terrible about it. And like Portugal winning the Euros did not end football for me, but that's because I'm not like Portuguese speaking. I don't see football through a Portuguese lens. I've also thought it would be insufferable if the U.S. ever wins anything big, but there's very limited threat of the U.S. ever winning anything big. So for kind of the language that I view the sport through, the danger is if England ever wins anything. And so I really don't want England to win the Euros, and their run has been so depressingly bad. Just so depressingly bad. Like, they keep advancing and they keep playing horrendous soccer. Their XG, expected goals, is negative for the tournament. They're in the semifinals, and if the shots that had been taken had an average distribution of results, they would have been outscored to this point. As it is, they're up 2 goals. Like, Spain has been so much better. Germany was so much better. Spain and Germany were the best 2 teams at the tournament, and they met in the quarterfinals. I say were, the tournament's not over. France was pretty insipid as well, But if France wins, that's fine. Like, France doesn't destroy my interest in a sport. So, in conclusion, in 50 minutes, go Netherlands, and if they don't win, God, we really need Spain to come through in the finals. And Spain are better than England. Like, it's been funny. England started the tournament as favorites. Like, their team is so loaded. They have so much talent on that squad. Um, like, I think most people have Mbappe and Haaland as the two best players in the world. Though I googled best players in the world ranking the other day just to like try to see what the consensus was, and Haaland was down to fourth, which like Vinny and Bellingham are really good. But this is to say, like Bellingham is somewhere in the conversation for those top five slots. Like Real Madrid's put up 95 points in league this year. I hate Real, but like they put up 95 points in league. He was one of their best two players. They won the Champions League. Like it was a very good year for Real Madrid, and he was a huge part of that dominance. So they have Bellingham, they have Phil Foden, who's just excellent, way better than Jack Grealish's stupid hair. Grealish, I think, didn't even make the England squad, which is pretty funny. Now, given England's manager, I don't know that not making the squad tells you much about his quality these days, but whatever. Yeah, what was I trying to say? Keep losing my train of thought. I'm very out of it today. Hopefully, I gave reasonable analysis at some point. But yeah, so England's just loaded. Favorites coming into the Euros. And then every game they play, they basically win, and their relative odds drop. Now, sometimes their actual odds go up. Like, right, when they win the quarterfinals, there's 4 teams that drop out. It's not just like they knocked out Switzerland, right? It's also like Germany fell out. Like, other teams fall out, and there's one round less to win. But their relative odds have gone down like every round. Like leaving the group stages, they had gone from favorite to like maybe third or fourth. And now they're up to second because there are 3 teams left. But they're a lot further behind Spain than they started ahead of Spain and now are clearly underdogs to Spain. And I think that's right because Spain have actually been good and England have been just a catastrophe every round. I thought the funniest stat was England are the second team to ever win a group, scoring just 2 goals, and the first one is England 3 years ago. This team sucks. No one should want to watch them. I recognize the Triple Triad has a lot of English players, but nationalism is bad. You don't have to support your stupid country. I don't. Not that I am a beacon of anything, but my point is, yeah, if England win, that's the end of football. Probably. Definitely as if they win the World Cup. Might be able to survive them winning the Euro, but it'll be a close call. And yeah, I've been really enjoying Football Manager. I get into Football Manager every time like the Euros or World Cup happen. But that phase will end rather quickly given certain results. Alright, let's end this video. Sorry for the babble.